Okay, are we live?
Yep, we're live.
Okay. Welcome everyone, it is so good to see all of you. We are going to get this meeting started, but I do want to mention that this is not a formal meeting like what we would normally have, and voting. This is an opportunity to provide information to you all and also to receive questions and feedback. So let's go ahead and get started with Brian. Do you have any sort of updates that you want to share with the group?
I do. Last meeting at the commissioners, the solar ordinance that we had proposed was voted in and passed. There was a discussion about the ordinance for the overlay zone regarding the decks, where we're allowing them to, basically shortening the
The setback.
so they can fit on these odd-shaped properties. So there will be a public hearing on Monday at the commissioners' meeting about that ordinance. And that's pretty much it. I do want to mention, though, I'm going to congratulate you
Thank you.
on your graduating from the University of Minnesota Duluth with a bachelor's degree in engineering.
Close, Minnesota State University.
Minnesota State.
Mankato.
Yes, there we go.
Same.
Same thing.
They're in the same
I am
area.
wearing Mankato colors today.
I think it's incredible being a full-time mom, a full-time employee, and a volunteer on the planning commission to be able to accomplish that. That's really well done. So congratulations.
Thank you. All right, Niles.
Yes. So as we said, this isn't a regular meeting. So at the June meeting, we'll review the annual report that we have to do by July 1st for the planning. That just goes over the number of new building permits that have been issued and all of that in the previous calendar year. So calendar year 2025. We'll have another item around a plat and some transfer of ownership and such, so we'll talk about that. And then just as a note, since there's been discussion about the downtown townhomes development, sort of, which is related to this but separate as well, we have received plans from the applicant. We're reviewing them. As we've sort of talked about before, they came with a concept plan last year. They can't be approved for a preliminary plan because there isn't water allocation available. That's based on a recommendation of the Planning Commission. So that's sort of, we're reviewing it and we're giving comments, but it's one of those things that will come back before the Planning Commission to start the preliminary plan process at some point. But just laying all of that out so that it was clear, just because there's discussion about that as well.
Right. Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. Just for context, I want to point out, because it seemed like there was a lot of misinformation circling around on Facebook, or not fully understanding on social media what was going on. That plan, in particular, 52 townhomes, has come to this commission as a concept, and we provided feedback on our concerns and some of the issues with that. It is located within what would be part of the CAD, and it would not meet the new updated guidelines. Is that correct?
So, yeah, that's part of which we'll get into about the residential and the special exception. And so what the ordinance talks about is a preference for first floor retail or commercial and second floor residential, which that is not, but that's sort of a discussion, that's sort of a separate discussion as well from all of this as well.
Yes, but I do want to make clear that plan, that development has not gone to the town of Poolesville commissioners.
Yeah.
We've seen a concept and not even a preliminary
Yeah.
plan.
And just to point out, for the letter that people received and such, that was all related to the stormwater concept. That is a county process. They're required by the county to send out those letters to provide that plan as well. So that's a parallel process. And we, again, just as always, we informed the county that it's under review but can't be approved, and here's why. But that it was able to move forward in terms of trying to understand the stormwater process for them. So that's sort of trying to explain that as well.
All right. So the goal of this meeting is, one, to help provide context and information and background and sort of understanding. Again, I know that we've all noticed a lot of concerning comments and misinformation and sort of issues with not understanding or being aware of the full process. And so I want to take just a moment to provide some background on the CAD. So in 1996, we need to go way back because people seem to think this came out of nowhere. In 1996, the comprehensive plan stated a preference to develop an old town or a town center and to try to help bring more infill and businesses into the area. There was a lot of discussion around historic and that sort of thing. And each comprehensive plan is great because it provides both a vision, it takes the pulse of the town with surveys, and then they provide action items. And some of the action items are like build offices and a town hall. We're sitting in one of the action items. Try to get a magnet program was in the 2005 comprehensive plan, which again highlighted the need for walkability, a downtown center, business development, all of those sort of things while preserving the history. And so these action items have a direct relationship to what happens in the years after. So I believe the high school program came in 2007. The magnet program's around 2007.
Yeah.
That is a direct result of the feedback that was received. I can't think of something off the top of my head from the 2011 plan, but you can see how this progresses. And this progression, this is not a locals initiative. This is a consistent decade after decade initiative that we just build on and build on. Like the streetscapes were, I
Yep.
believe,
That was, I think, originally in the
it might have been in 96 was the
plan.
mention of it, and then reaffirmed in both 2005 and 2011 and 2024. So this is a very long process, and you all are getting to see some of the fruits of 30 years of work. So that streetscape is literally 30 years of work.
I just want to add that applies to this CAD also, that this is a long-term process, and that we're not ready to, like, shove this down anybody's throat. We got we have the people, we have your ear, and you have ours, so this is kind of, this is what the process is, and I'm just so happy to see so many people here.
I have to agree.
Yeah, this is great.
I'm so happy to see everyone being part of the process. And I know there's a lot of questions. We will take questions. So the format's going to look a little bit like this. Niles has provided a bunch of information, high-level overview, slides, that's going to go through a lot of, it should answer a lot of your questions. At the end of that, hopefully, if it doesn't, we will provide pen and paper. You can write down questions. We'll go through everyone's questions. This is because I think it's important to prioritize answering people's questions first. And then after that, we will provide 2 minutes of just feedback time if you want to make a statement or put your opinion on this. We are not trying to convince you that the CAD is a good thing or a bad thing. We're just wanting to make sure that you have the information and that you know the facts and you know the history and the context of it so that you can make an informed decision for yourself. What parts make sense, what parts don't make sense, and if you agree or disagree, that's on you. But it's really important, given the misinformation that we've seen, that we get this out to you all. So thank you again so much for coming. And Niles, I'll let you take it away. Thank you so much.
Okay. So basically what I did is I tried to think of this as sort of the conceptual kind of ideas and how and what ideas were built through to get to the ordinance. It won't go over everything in the ordinance, and it won't address necessarily every specific little point, but tries to put it into context. So the first thing is this was in the FAQs and sent out in a couple of other places, but this is sort of the intent of the Cultural Arts District. So the purpose of the Cultural Arts District to foster a vibrant, walkable, and aesthetically pleasing town center, promotes artistic expression, community engagement, mixed-use development in alignment with the town's comprehensive plan, and over the long term. So the strategic asset's sort of already in the area. So Riverworks, obviously, with the idea of doing a cultural arts district, it's the idea of having, institutions that could provide some cultural arts, so Riverworks. The community center, which will be in Dillingham Park, sort of a block away from this, which was, again, a source of kind of bringing people in and having community there. Poolesville High, the high school, sort of the cornerstone adjacent to it, just across the street on Wooten on the backside there, that has its own arts program and things like that. The historic buildings within the Cultural Arts District. One thing to mention, that when we originally talked about this, the original concept was looking at the historic district, that is the National Park Service Historic District, and those properties. So some of it is looking at how to connect new uses with old uses and things like that. And then the existing businesses. So one of the things that I think we could have communicated better or so on is the idea of this is an area that already has businesses here. Pretty much every business in the CAD is either already a permitted use or a special exception, and they both remain so given the category. So one example was Pat Morningstar's facility that is already a special exception use. In 2000, when he got a new building, he was required to get a special exception then. The Poolesville Tire and Auto, when that was built, there was also a special exception that he got at that time. So it's not changing the uses, and I was trying to check to make sure all of the uses fit. So what your category was then is the category now specifically. And we'll get into a little bit more the uses that change, but just as a sense, it's trying to keep what's there and then try to see how to fit new things in it. So that's just one point as well. So this is the idea of the assets, what is already here and how to try to make it fit together. The second set of things is sort of the strategic concerns. What is it that we're looking at from the comp plan and then through to the Cultural Arts District and what it could be? These were things that brought up. So parking, and we'll talk about this more, both the availability of parking and the parking requirements, and we'll talk a little bit about what that means. Infill and redevelopment. So again, that idea of the jigsaw. You have things that are there. How do we scale those things, which gets to the next part, with each other? So do you have uses that are expansive versus smaller shops and things like that? So that's kind of the idea in terms of the concerns that it's trying to address. And then the 2024 comprehensive plan. And this is all stuff that I took that are sort of summarizing specific objectives within the comprehensive plan. So encouraging infill development, residential misuse and redevelopment, especially within the town center. There was a specific suggestion to look at density as a tool for creating mixed use. So looking at how to adjust the densities in areas to try to promote things like mixed use. And that's sort of that second one with the density strategy. Diversifying the economy. One of the things going back to the 2007, then in 2012, the economic development studies was looking at sort of diversifying the type of businesses in, so how cultural arts could sort of fit into that. And then there is specific language around, in the comprehensive plan, around promoting the arts and recreation and things like that, both from a marketing perspective and sort of supplying sort of the framework to allow that to happen. So that's sort of a brief overview, and we can get into that more later of what exactly we talked about in the comp plan. But that's sort of the framework. And to note, the first meeting where this was discussed, sort of talking about the cultural or historical arts district, it's the same meeting in which the comp plan was approved by the Planning Commission. So
So for timeline, that was April of 2024. So this has been 2 years of discussions, almost every meeting, every month. So
Discussions with yourself.
yeah.
public discussions that are available for everyone to watch on YouTube, discussing every single part from parking to land use to whatever. It has been on Planning Commission's docket every month almost since April of 2024.
Now, so this is sort of goes into the sort of residential and the cultural arts district, and this is sort of in some ways the crux of what has been discussed. So the preservation goal, ensure the current downtown area is maintained and future development is appropriately scaled to, with existing historic structures. So that's where we were talking about kind of that idea of matching things together. The special exception intent is to determine how new projects fit into the neighborhood's look and feel, encouraging mixed use and a variety of housing. So the intent in the discussions that the Planning Commission had, the intent was not to necessarily impact how people are using their existing homes, but much more about what happens when there is redevelopment. And it was framed in those terms. And I think we can talk about the specifics of the ordinance and how it does that, and there's always room for improvement. But it's just giving you a sense of how it fits in from a strategic sense. And then sort of future guidance. The provision is designed to guide, the provisions of the ordinance are designed to guide and shape future development without hindering existing property rights, and sort of, that's where there could be more room for discussion and future conversation. And then for the commercial uses, and I talked about this a little bit before with existing businesses, but the ordinance goals is to change use categories for businesses incompatible with the arts, cultural arts district specific goals. So this goes into the idea of looking at uses that are big and massive. So one example is a bowling alley, right? That takes up a lot of space, and it's a very sort of confined area. So the idea was to redefine those categories of either prohibited uses or ones that were made special exception, because there was an issue of, would it take up a lot of space? Would it need a lot of parking? Would it need a lot of these things that would be incompatible with such a small area? So that was the idea behind how to look at those things. And so all of those kind of fit in, and you can look at the use chart and have further discussions about it. And then CAD and parking. So I just want to address a couple of things here. So there's two, as we said before, there are kind of two problems with parking in this area. One is, on the one hand, the lack of parking, and the other hand is the requirements for parking, right? So for businesses, the town generally has what one could say very sort of prohibitive parking requirements, in the sense that it requires a lot of parking for the use. A good example is actually Dollar General across the street, where I think it was 60-some parking spots that were originally required for that use, and it got a special variance to have less parking that sort of scaled right with how many patrons they have. So in the ordinance itself, and this is one of the opportunities, we talk about using the existing regulations as guidelines, and then a potential new development could come in and actually justify, say, no, we only need this many and this is why, right? Or business, we have another location, this is what we need, and this is our sort of rationale for why we need this versus that. Okay. It's also worth noting that all of commercial development has to go through a site plan process with the Planning Commission. So in terms of the parking, it's not necessarily adding a second sort of level of review. It would be part of the review process, and is designed to allow flexibility. On the other hand, as we talked about, there are issues with how much parking there is. There were various discussions that the Planning Commission had about potential solutions, including adding a municipal parking lot, getting agreements with the schools to use their parking at various higher use times, or like in the evening or on weekends. And then on-street parking spots on West Willard was one discussion, really parking bays and things like that. So trying to find ways to add parking to this area as well. So on the one hand is trying to address various concerns about the regulations for parking, and on the other hand, trying to provide solutions and seeing how that works. Now, the solution part obviously isn't part of the ordinance, because it's not about code provisions, it's about how we proceed going forward, what makes sense and what doesn't, and engineering is involved in that, and all of those things. So that's sort of that. Oh, the other point that I wanted to make, there was a conversation last time about the parking lot use in the use chart, and that it was by special exception. If you look at the definition for that, that is where there is paid parking lot. So in other words, a commercial parking lot. So the idea was there is that, again, in this confined space, you don't want part of it taken up by a commercial parking lot unless it was either connected to a use which wouldn't be a paid parking lot, but again, trying to maximize the amount of area there. So just making that note as well. And that's the main overview of the things. As we sort of said, the Planning Commission wants to engage in a dialogue with concerned residents about how best the town can achieve its goals in this part of the town. So, we can have questions, we can see how we want to approach this, but that sort of is the crux of the overview of it all. And we can go from there.
Yeah, do any of you want to add to this? Do you feel like there was something that you were? Thank you, Niles. All right, let's just take sort of 5 minutes.
Right.
If anyone wants paper, pencil, pen, write down some questions. Like I said, I want to prioritize those. We'll have John read them. It also gives you the opportunity to ask questions without necessarily putting your name to it. So you can ask whatever you feel like. And then after we sort of get through the priority questions, we can take feedback. And if you want to sign up to give feedback, there is a list here. Please put your name down and we'll call you in order.
Please print.
Does anybody know how to write cursive anymore?
Water, excuse me. I'm so thirsty.
Oh, yeah, there should be plenty in there.
Do you need one?
Yes.
Do you want a water too?
Yep.
Do you have cold? What? Cold.
Yes, I'm recovering from one.
The air in Minnesota is so dry.
Thank you.
Still dry.
I think over there, John.
Somebody moves our trash can. We don't have a trash can right here. I can put my gum in. But I'll survive. I've got a...
I got one.
Good.
Prioritize that.
So what's next for you for work? Or for school, I mean. You doing more?
I'm gonna take the summer. I go full-time Monday. So,
Congratulations.
thank you. I'm very excited. And then when the kids go back to school, I'm gonna start studying for my CAD exam, because I wanna take that exam.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
this year. And then work towards my licensure. And then the other day I was thinking, maybe I'll go back for a master's in public policy next fall.
Right. Never ending.
I feel like
You're gonna-
I got the momentum.
Yeah. No, when you're in a rhythm and you're getting it done, yeah. I buy that.
I had a very successful year this last year.
Good. Awesome. But you won't have to go back to Minnesota
Nope.
unless you choose to.
It's lovely.
Yeah.
It's so-
It has been cold up there, hasn't it?
my kids were offended. They took it personally.
We had some a red maple in the front yard. Had some new leaves coming out, and got that freeze a couple weeks ago, and at least 50% of it's toast.
I don't think we'll have.
Crepe myrtles, my crepe myrtles started coming out, and
Really?
they're all brown now.
I worry about the farmers and the harvest now.
Yeah.
Were the blossoms on?
At the grape, a lot of vineyards got destroyed around here too.
All right. Couple more minutes.
Yeah. And then are you going to get the questions and go through them?
I think we can just answer them, whoever needs.
Okay.
I think we should, divide it.
Okay.
This is a chunk paper, and a lot of it's, really detailed parts about certain things. Yeah, I think, John, were you gonna read them for us?
Yeah.
Is he grabbing them?
Yeah. Thank you so much for your flexibility and changing up the meeting strategy a little bit. It's fine. I mean, it's fine. I think that to get a better end product, like going out what trade-offs. So I love seeing all these people. I don't care if they cost of change or increase, like, it will be better for this.
Oh, yeah. Two more. Was someone
so much.
writing? Yep. Here you go.
Did everyone get their questions
There's
in?
one
Oh, there's
person
one more,
more
okay. I'm
We're on
not
top of
trying to
it.
rush anyone. I know it's hard to like write.
Yeah,
Should have provided like clipboards or something. I didn't think about it.
it's fine. We'll get.
We'll get through it.
We can get started. He's still working on.
Thank you so much. John, what you got?
Ready?
I'm ready. We're
Okay.
ready, I think.
All right. Lexi mentioned that plan has been in the works for 30 years. However, the world has changed enormously since then, and the retail business is very different. I think we need a new plan that recognizes the realities of 2026.
I could speak to that a little bit. So I highly recommend if you have time, you should go read the last 30 years of comprehensive plans. I haven't read before 1996, but I've read 4 now. So there is some interesting perspective on how the things have changed. And in particular, a lot of the recognition was that this area will cap out of growth in the residential side. And growth is very important to our income base. And we're going to lose that sort of tax revenue from increased residential growth. And so very early on in the late 90s, mid-90s, it was recognized that we need to start bringing in more business and enticing more people. And specifically, it talks about trying to make Poolesville a day or a weekend trip destination. And at that time, I agree. At that time in the 90s and 2005, and even to some degree in 2011 with that comprehensive plan, it was centered around history, the history and the historic portion of Poolesville. And while I love Poolesville's culture and history, we are not Gettysburg. Let's be honest. our history is probably not sufficient to have people come for tourism purposes. So we need to look at other opportunities to have people come out to spend their money in Poolesville as a destination, day trip or weekend, whatever. And so how can we help recognize that while realizing that we live in 2026? And you can see the progression, but it's always there. There's always this underlying current that we need to bring people to Poolesville to spend their money here, but we can't keep them here because there won't be spaces residentially. And so, like I said, you can read the comprehensive plans. You can see that trajectory very early on. And in 2026, this is a possible viable option. Like, I don't know if we create this code, if people will come, but it does create opportunity for these sort of investments.
And nothing for the people of Poolesville. A destination town does
I-
not make any.
You can make your comments, Jenny, I appreciate it, and I will hear all your comments, given the 3-minute restriction when we get through the questions. But I think that that's a very narrow view, to think that bringing culture and arts and classes and opportunities and additional businesses into this area is not beneficial to the people of Poolesville. It absolutely is beneficial to the
So-
people of Poolesville.
I'd also like to comment, the question or the statement, I guess, as it was, mentioned that we needed to find something not retail, right? Retail's changed, and we specifically call that out, this effort is to try and diversify our business holdings in the town, specifically for non-retail. So it's sort of, we're thinking the same way. I don't think that this is a shocking statement to anybody up here. We agree, like, retail stores are not going to do it in this area. So we need something else that is attractive and brings activity into the downtown area.
Okay, this next one is a twofer. There is talk about parking lot, no talk about roads. Fisher Avenue is getting very busy. If the ferry opens, it will get even more crowded. Okay. Then the other one is, if the town water problem is solved, is there a limit to constraint of new units?
I love this question. I think you guys are both maybe ideally situated to answer this, unless
Yeah. So I think the
you want to answer?
I can go with first, taking the second part first. Okay. The water, whatever the future of the water is dependent on a bunch of different factors, some of which we know and some of which we don't know. Okay. Part of it is we are working through the issues of PFAS in the water. We have filtration units on 2 wells. We are working on a plan to centralize the treatment for PFAS in several other wells, and that's an ongoing project, and we are working on that. So that has a definite solution to it. The part about, like, the actual capacity and what a new capacity number could be, that's trickier. So currently, all of our wells have permits. We have 5 permits with the state that are under review. We've asked for them to look at things like the water balance calculations and look at what it is and see where that number is and where we are. What that means for the overall capacity, we won't know yet, because there's sort of things that we would need to work out. Some of that has to do with the physical. Part of it is a calculation based on our physical area. Obviously, that is not changing at the moment. So, some of it are those constraints, but part of it is an unknown, and that's what's taking time for us to do all of the work that we need to do. So that's, I think, the closest summation to, we can't give an exact number right now.
The other portion that we don't worry about as much as we used to, by a long shot, because we've been working on it for the last 26 years, is the sewage capacity. We've now got that well under control for the time being, because those repairs never get fully taken care of. It's always an ongoing thing. But right now, we're not having a capacity problem at the wastewater plant. And we've also upgraded the plant to a new denitrification facility that the state helped fund. And as always, the staff here is always looking for new funding sources so that the citizenry doesn't have to pay for it directly out of their pocket.
And that's the other thing to point out. So what we're currently doing is a process of redoing the westerly water line as well, and that will help with some of the issues with water main breaks and things like that. And this is, in the neighborhood for the well centralization, it's about $5 million in state funds we're getting. It's 2.5, I think, for the water line, and 700,000 for some work on 2 and 3, where we already have PFAS filters. So we are working all of those angles to address the infrastructure, but specific future is a little bit more complicated. Did you want to say anything about the roads?
Roadway, so whenever a new development comes into town, there's a traffic study that's done to determine what the conditions are on the loading of the town. Amazingly, what you're seeing, some of the higher traffic counts that you're seeing, it's not from the residential side, it's from the GPS systems that we have now. It tells us which is the quicker way. But the capacity, if you look at the trip counts, typically you're looking at maybe 5,000 trips a day, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
So there's capacity in the roadways, and one of the things that we're going to try to help with is through the streetscape plan and the addition of a traffic circle, so the flow continues, and the spacing will be more of a better spacing. White's Ferry question, well, we all know where we're at with that. I wish I could say that it was open, because I certainly did like the ferry to get over to Virginia rather than going up the Point of Rocks or around the Beltway. But they're working on it.
You should also speak to the regarding the water. I mean, you made great points, but something people should know is that, like, the town is working with 2 hydrologists.
Yep.
And then everything that we do has to be approved by the Maryland Department of the Environment. So
Yep.
this isn't just like we're like, I think there's probably enough water. It's like,
Yeah.
it's we're taking it very, very seriously, studying it very hard.
Yep.
Probably losing some sleep over it, but this is not. There's a lot of careful deliberation and science behind any water issues, which is part of the reason everything's on hold now.
Yeah.
The other thing I always hear people say is, like, or I've heard people say, is that, well, the water's not very good. Well, the PFAS treated water it's not, the filters aren't just removing PFAS, they're removing any bad stuff in the water. So the water's probably pretty good right now.
The water quality, that is something that improves, and you'll see in a little bit the next CCR, which will come out in the next. It'll be mailed to you. You'll be able to see that, and will be on the website about the quality of the water. For the capacity, I always say there on the website. There's the water capacity report that we do every January. So there's a sewage report and a water report, and you can find those either on the January Planning Commission agenda or at, I think it's the 2nd January Commissioners meeting. You can find both of those report, and I'll make sure that they're on the water and sewer page. I'm going to make a note to do that as well, just to make it a third place to find it. If you want to know the exact numbers of our capacity and where we're at as well.
I'd like to add a couple comments about the streetscape, and the mention of the traffic circle, I know, always gets farmers a little worked up, but they will be mountable curbs and we've had farmers in talking about this, right? We've had people discussing the way we could implement that. So we've got their approval on that mountable curb in the traffic circle. And the streetscape along Fisher here will have a proper center turn lane. So we don't have these offshoots to the right, people trying to get around and where we have these crosswalks. So I think that's going to help the flow a lot better. And I don't know if it'll address all the concerns that we have, but I think it'll be a much better drivable pass through town once the streetscape is complete. And
we are working on it. On Friday, we hope to have the 90% plan done, and then our whole goal is to have the whole design to the federal government, because it's a federally funded $4 million project, by July 1st. So we are on our way to that.
I'll add one little thing to the traffic circle, because Lord knows I love a roundabout. is that I know there has been some concern and talk about especially the proximity to the school and pedestrian crossing. And I will say that I believe it's a 2-stage pedestrian crossing with splitter islands on all approaches, which means that instead of trying to cross 2 lanes or 3 lanes or however many it will be and clear all of that traffic, you are crossing a single lane to a pedestrian refuge in the splitter islands and then can make the second crossing. And what statistics show is that these type of roundabouts are significantly safer. I know they feel uncomfortable and no one likes new traffic patterns. We hate those. But once implemented within 6 months, they become very, very comfortable and increased safety and decreased significant crashes, right? So like fatal crashes at roundabouts typically drop 90% over the course of 5 years. So just whether you like it or not, or you want it or not, this is information for you to sort of like, you're not crossing all the way across and then people are coming and going. There are splitter islands with refuges. All right. Next question.
All right. I heard mention about a special exception and variances to the town plan regulations. The regulations are used more like guidelines now. Why not discuss and vote to change the regulations instead of adding all the special cases?
So you want me to answer that one? So generally speaking, so in the code already, there's a lot of uses that are by special exception. And what special exception generally means is that it is a use that is permitted but with conditions. And so it's putting out those conditions for various scenarios. So one might be traffic and parking concerns. One might be noise or, for example, a big issue that often gets, can be a source of contention in communities is like storage facilities, where they can be accessed 24 hours a day, like storage units. And so those are often done in communities by special exception so that they can regulate when people can come and when people can't come and things like that. So in general, the idea of a special exception is to make sure that the uses fit with each other and with the overall feeling of a neighborhood, based on various criteria and various concerns that could come up with having 2 uses next to each other. So a good example of that is actually with Riverworks itself. It got a special exception to have its outdoor stage because that could generate noise, and it could generate noise in the evening and things like that. So that's a good example of where a special exception allows for something to take place, but it has to make sure that the conditions are right. And so that's how it's typically used overall.
It adds like guardrails.
Well,
but it
guardrails
does
and
not prevent stuff.
specific, but it doesn't prevent something from happening, yeah.
Thank you, John.
Okay. Is the parking lot right of the Poolesville Baptist Church on town right-of-way? If so, can that be designated as town parking?
So that,
I will mention that that's not part of the CAD.
right,
Like,
but
that specific area isn't part of the CAD, but I understand the parking is.
But part of that is, yes, there's at least part of it that is the right of way, because there's at one time a plan to allow Wooten to continue up through that area, and so there is town, sort of town right of way there, and then and so I think there are agreements with both the doctor's office there, and I was not here for this part, but with the parking, with the the vision office there and the Baptist church about that, so there'd have to be further discussions for that to take place, but it is technically in town right of way there. And you can see that on the GIS as well. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to struggle with this one. Suggest use that the fact that Poolesville CBD be cited Maryland Heritage area to
foster funding.
Foster funding.
I might have, yeah. So that's another thing that we have looked at. Part of that this is where it gets into a little bit more complicated things that is worth further discussion, is generally that's tied to, those type of grant fundings and things like that are tied to what communities can also offer in terms of special, either discounts on taxes or funding sources, so that it's partially, we get grant money to do things like a heritage area, or to do things like a main street, or things like that. But we also have to give incentives to the businesses, or to the Main Street project and things like that. And that's something that Poolesville typically hasn't done. We don't have a separate tax rate for businesses or things like that for the property tax. So that requires more discussion than just zoning. But, all of those things could be things to discuss and talk further.
I will add just briefly that either in late 2024 or early 2025, I'd have to go back and find those meetings. We did originally make this a, culture arts historic district. It originally started, and it was, the idea was very much bigger. It included much more space. I think all the way down to Dillingham Park, sort of. This, in the initial, so this has gone through, easily a dozen iterations. This is not something that was put together overnight. It's something that, we look at parking, we look at parking again, we look at parking again. Each tiny little bit, I think the signs took us 4 months to get through.
Yeah.
So excuse me, I'm speaking, ma'am. Excuse me. I will give you your time, but please do not interrupt. That's so rude to everyone here. So, as I was saying, that it did begin as being a historic sort of idea as well. And there were some issues and some concerns about how that would work, and that some of the buildings were not actually historic, I believe. But there was a whole process, is what I'm getting at, and that the history of the town was very much considered, and how do we give homage to that, but also bring in new business. All right, next question, please.
How many members are on the Board of Zoning Appeals? The zoning ordinance says 3, the town website says 5.
So it's just as a quick answer, that it is 5, and there are 5 current members of the Board of Zoning Appeals. I'll check to make sure it should be correct in the zoning ordinance, or in the code, because it might say 5 in the code, and I'll make sure that it's consistent where it is. But it was amended to 5.
Okay. So are you telling us that businesses fail because there is no cultural arts district, and not because they fail to understand their location?
Clientele?
Clientele, and fail to offer quality, value, and service? No.
No?
Yeah.
I don't think at any point during our discussion did we talk about failing businesses.
No, I think the discussion was primarily just about encouraging more business
Right.
than it was about why any particular business succeeds or doesn't succeed.
Right. This wasn't about limiting businesses. This was about providing opportunities for strategic growth, not to restrict it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and this doesn't really do anything to incentivize any particular kind of business or nonprofit or operation. It really provides a physical guidelines that create a type of physical growth that encourages higher density fronts closer to sidewalks and walkability that way. It doesn't say we're giving incentives for a business. It just creates a different kind of texture in that part of town, or encourages a different kind of texture. It doesn't actually create anything. It waits for private initiative to build things and do things. And that can come from any direction. It's not, there's no favoritism for one thing or another.
Well said.
Yeah, well said, Stephen, thank you.
Well said, thank you.
Next question.
Sure.
Are there current light and noise ordinances in the proposed area CAD? This is a threefer. Would the CAD require changes to the light and noise ordinances? What would be the enforcement method for the above?
So there are no provisions about noise or light in the ordinance. All of that is governed by the Montgomery County noise and light ordinance, and so the town code adopts the county code. It literally writes in the chapter for the noise ordinance and for that, and so the enforcement for all of those things is done by the county. So if you have a complaint about noise, it goes to the county and they adjudicate it from there.
This is a fourfer.
I'm ready.
Are you trying to move the downtown further down the street towards 107 and 109 with this plan? How are the existing buildings affected? It's more than 4. What type of new businesses fit in your vision? You used a garden center as a no-no. Why? Is this how we view our town, hometown charm versus bougie art district?
Bougie.
Love it.
I'd like to say something about the Arts District comment. Associating a term like bougie with Arts District is not at all the intention here. When we talked about the Arts District, we talked about places like Morning Star and places that are crafts places, and including work traditions as part of the arts and celebrating the kinds of things that have gone on in Poolesville for a long time. That includes landscaping and celebrating the skills and culture that go with landscaping and growing. So when you think about this abstract idea of an arts district, think about skills, traditions, talents that come from here, and being able to highlight that they are here already and not necessarily bringing people in from outside that aren't Poolesville.
Stephen,
All
yeah,
right.
I mean, we can look at the woodwind ensemble, the musicians that are here in town, the artists here in town, the folk art. Yeah, absolutely. Our intention was not to make this some sort of elite gallery district. It was to make it accessible and community oriented, or make the opportunity. I'll address the garden center because I think that was one of the uses that I was like, no, I don't think that should be included, and it's strictly a space issue. I mean, you look at Potomac Garden Center, and it takes up a very large amount of space, and it doesn't make sense that we're trying to make a walkable, inviting community where people can go from, destination to destination to destination within just a few blocks and have half of a block be a garden center. So that is specifically size related and why that use was excluded. Does anyone want to discuss about moving downtown or how it affects
Yeah, no,
existing buildings?
yeah, so I think Niles hit in his presentation that none of the existing buildings would have their zoning changed. If it's permitted now, it will be permitted if this gets adopted. So I think that's the impact, there's very little. And we're not trying to move the downtown, but there's gaps, there's places that could be infilled in that district area. And we just want to make sure that we have as Lexi has said eloquently a couple times, we're creating opportunities to have the type of downtown that we want also in that area.
Okay. Wouldn't businesses need to provide their own land for parking, not use our streets? Why is the town providing parking for businesses?
So just to clarify a couple of things. One is, yes, they would still, under this ordinance, it doesn't say that you aren't providing, or that they are providing no parking on site. It's the idea of creating flexibility about how many spaces. Okay, so there's a list in the ordinance, in the zoning code now, and then there's a chart in the ordinance that is designed to give flexibility in the number of spaces that they say their use needs. So that's number one. So there'd still be on-site parking, it just might be less than what is currently required by the code. The idea of adding more on-street parking is just an example of a way that might be able to facilitate the issue of that this is a fairly dense area with not a lot of space that isn't necessarily accessible to add parking otherwise, so that's a way of approaching it. It doesn't mean that should happen or that should be the best use, but it's one of the ways to explore parking in this area that is rather dense, along with maybe a municipal parking lot or things like that. So it's not saying that they will have no on-site parking, it's more giving them flexibility to fulfill it.
But still provided by the town.
Provided by, well, no, so they'd still have to provide parking spots, so they can't meet the requirement with zero. You see what I'm saying? It's just that it's not set to be like one part per 200 square feet of floor space, right, which is one of the requirements. So it's more about trying to give flexibility for them to say they have an art studio and they have another one in Damascus or something, and they say, well, we only get X number of people per hour, so we only think we need 4 instead of 8, things like that. It's to scale it to what they want.
Would that be scaling down rather than scaling?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. They might,
Necessarily.
yeah, they might say we need more. We've had situations like that where have happened where people have said we need more parking than what is provided, and so therefore based on our use, and this is why. So it can go both ways. It's just trying to be more flexible than a rigid.
They should provide for that.
Yeah,
They would.
yeah,
Yes.
mhm. Yes, they would be in that scenario. If they needed more, they would be then have to provide more. So it's about them justifying what they need, not just what it is.
All right, here you go. How will misuse of parking be handled? There is a current misuse of parking, so what is the plan? Okay.
So just as a quick thing, so for on-street parking and things like that, that is a police power, and it is enforced by the police. So if there's a parking issue, if you see someone, call the non-emergency line for the police and say, hey, there's an issue here. It's either blocking traffic or creating an issue. If it's an issue like we do have issues in some of the townhouse parking lots, in that case, often that's handled by the HOAs themselves. They can tow and do other things. But right now, parking enforcement is handled by the police.
All right. Why was the CAD plan most recent so small when compared to the earlier CAD plans?
That's a great question. Do you want to talk about that, or?
Yeah, I think the original larger scope didn't match, the entire area that was in the scope didn't match. We were looking at going out 109 a little bit, and the churches there, that's just not the same type of space as we have, what is in the CAD now. And I can't remember what the exact reason why we brought it back up from.
We wanted it to be more focused. At the end of the day, we wanted to really focus in on a much smaller area to try and help that grow in a meaningful way. And by creating like a 6-block area, which is what I think roughly it was at the beginning, I mean, it went all the way up to the churches to the north. It came, like I said, all the way over to like here. In fact, like right here, across from us. It was just too much. And we didn't really want to, change the commercial area. We wanted to make a distinction. We wanted to keep that commercial. We wanted to try and, invite those bigger businesses into appropriate spaces and then help make a more compact and higher density use and community feel in those few blocks. I believe that's right.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Yeah,
We
it
discussed
has.
that, like I said, more than a year ago, so my brain is not fully.
What is the communication plan going forward? The issue never was the CAD. It was the downzoning that surprised everyone. It was the surprise of the small details.
That's totally fair. You know what? We dropped the ball, and this is not something that we do very often, right? Like, this is a big deal, and it's a very large project, and we honestly thought that we were being very transparent. There was a letter sent out to people in the affected areas in 2023, or no?
This is 24, December of
24.
2024.
December 24. There was a public statement made by myself at Poolesville Day in 2025, and there was another letter sent out
I want to say it was about September of 25.
Okay.
Yeah, about that was about doing a survey of the cultural arts district.
Right. That wasn't enough, clearly. But,
Yeah.
and all the open meetings.
It's not to say that we feel like we did a good job. We look at it now and we understand that nobody knew,
Yeah,
right? But
which-
we're here now,
which is
right? And that's,
interesting.
this is good. And it wasn't that we were trying to not be transparent, we just weren't hitting the mark. So this is a great opportunity for us to talk about what is the best way to get messages out to people. How do you want to be informed? I'm sorry?
That's unrealistic.
Yeah,
I
it's okay.
appreciate that but we're a very large town, and it is unrealistic to expect people to go door to door to knock and to leave little messages and say, there has to be a trade-off, right? Like, there has to be some sort of way that we can engage that captures everyone. And I welcome that feedback. I'm sure Niles welcomes that feedback. It's always a struggle when we try and get information out that people just don't get it, and I'm not sure how to make it easier or better or more accessible.
I think the thing to think about a lot more is how we think about everything we do, right? So there's alerts on the website you can get. You can get them broadly for just sort of what's going on. You can get them for specific things, like for each committee and each board has their own agenda. You can subscribe to get them, so every time there's a new agenda, you can see it. Try to put things on those agendas so there's materials and such, and we can make sure that that process moves along. But I also think there is a way in which we can focus in on when we get to a point of saying, hey, we have something that you need to see, to get that out further, where there's a discussion point, right? We want to discuss this specific thing, then we need to communicate that in a way that isn't just general. It isn't just, hey, we're talking about the cultural arts district, we're talking about it. What does that mean? And I think there are ways to provide that information using our existing communication channels, and then doing things like still sending out letters and things like that, which I think was effective once we got to this phase, where we did letters for the public hearing, for the public hearing for the commissioners, and we did letters for this hearing, or this forum, and so on. And so when we're looking at how to communicate going forward, it's more about being sensitive to the topics and what we always want feedback on everything, but when there's a specific thing that says, hey, we're going to talk about this, here are the parameters of what we're going to talk about. Because I think the other part is, when you just hear cultural arts district, what does that mean? And I think the other part of the communication is communicating in a way that explains what we need, also what we need from you. Not just that we'd like to hear from you, but what we need from you. And I think there are ways to address that as well.
It's a very difficult thing, and I don't disagree that the information should have and could have gotten out better. We did what we thought. Are there other questions?
Oh, there's more questions.
I do want to give time for like feedback. How many more do we have?
Probably 6 or 7.
Okay, yeah, all right.
All right. Why go away from this, in quotation marks, super priority status of the residential in the town center stated the 2024 comp plan? Then, if residential and mixed use is truly a CAD goal, are you concerned that nobody will invest any venture capital into the CAD with the uncertainty of surrounding the special exception? What about the 52 townhome project? Would you change during the special exception review if the CAD were to be altered as is? Less density, commercial first floor.
Well, I think under the CAD, the 52 townhome residential would not be a permitted use. Is that correct?
Well, so I think that's where it's not that, the way the ordinance is written is that we have residential by special exception. Then it's written that it's a preference for first floor residential and first floor commercial, second floor residential, meaning that it's not necessarily a requirement. The idea there in sort of to write it is to make it so that if there was a creative way of combining those two things, that there might be something, if a project were to come, that would be something to evaluate. So I don't want to say, because special exception, again, as I said, is a permitted, like townhouse as a use is a use in the use chart, and we made it special exception. So that means that they could be permitted in certain, under conditions. And maybe that is something to look at as to how we define that or not, and that's your guys' choice. But I think I want to be careful about what I'm saying, because it's not unpermitted or permitted, it's more about the circumstances under which it is.
We should circle back and relook at those residential
Mm-hmm.
and how that impacts both existing and future.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of pushback on that and a lot of very good feedback on the residential aspects. And so that's, like I said, this only gets better with your input, and your input is creating, an iteration that will make this better by looking at residential again.
Was there something else on there that,
No, that was that.
okay.
I don't think we answered the first question there, which was why go away from the super priority for the,
Right, was
Yeah.
from a super priority.
yeah. And that comes down to the uncertainty of our water allocations. So we have a moratorium on water allocations right now. We have a lot of infrastructure work that we're working on, and we need review from the Maryland Department of the Environment to let us know what our permitted use will be going forward. So with that uncertainty, we need to look at other ways that we can hopefully provide opportunities to get some infill on some of these areas.
Why is change in zoning needed?
Zoning creates opportunities or restrict opportunities. And again, this has been a high priority area that goes back to at least 96 in the comprehensive plan. The zoning was originally changed in 1998, right? Didn't we get a
Yeah,
new
that
zoning?
was when the current zoning ordinance has its genesis in 1998.
Right, it has its genesis in 1998, and I think we can all agree that there's been a lot of change in land use and what happens in the last, do the math for me, it's really 30 years almost? That's depressing. So it was time to have another look anyways at the land use.
Yeah. And for the reasons that Stephen had illustrated earlier, the opportunities and the way to shape how the downtown area in that zone would could possibly look, and the benefits it could give. It's by the whole impetus of a cultural arts district is kind of the answer as to why we needed to change the zoning. Or propose to change the zoning.
All right. This is a couple of them. What studies have you done that you think would drive up for our arts district? I guess they're asking about it. Have we done any studies?
Yeah. Have we, I don't think
So-
we've done any formal feasibility studies on the specific art.
No, some of the research on this and some of the comprehensive plan assessments are based on the 2012 opportunity study and things like that. And so that's another aspect that could be explored more is doing more formal research into that part of those things. But there was some, I have up actually on my computer, some of the stuff from 2012 and earlier that sort of ties into this.
When was the first draft of the rezoning made public?
So it was made public before, I believe it was the second commissioners meeting in March, I believe was the first. Yes, very perfect.
So that was the full draft.
Yeah,
That was the full.
that's the full draft. Mhm.
But the land use in particular would have been initially in early 2025, I believe.
Yes, but it was, that was when, it was the working draft. That was when you guys worked on it, but versus the public. They asked specifically about the public.
I understand.
Have you ever discussed downzoning and how that would change the taxes?
So I'm not aware of any tax implications by changing the zoning status. Again, that's something we can look into, but I'm not aware of that, so.
It's a good question. Our assumption was that this would not change the tax.
Yeah.
But should be investigated. All right. Does anyone else want to sign up? We can, yeah, we can take just a few minutes if anyone else wants to sign up.
Yeah, either way. Yep.
Did you sign up?
We're gonna have the TV apps and upcoming agendas. And give them information. At that time, too, this is just
Yeah.
the first.
Yeah, and I do want to keep it to 2 hour meeting. I kind of want to see how many are there, but we could talk about this all night, and I'm not sure that that's super helpful. There's a lot of information that needs to be digested.
But if they came and signed up, we got all the speakers.
Oh, yeah.
I'm running off the page. I haven't seen anybody flip it over yet, though. That's what happened at the commissioners meeting. They actually flipped it over and right on the back of it. Oh, that
Okay.
was just small writing.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, looks like we have 15 speakers.
45 minutes.
45 minutes and 3 minutes each, so we'll definitely do a limit to 3 minutes. I want to be respectful of people's time. All right. Where'd Jerry go? Did he step
Oh,
out?
we said we were gonna give him a couple minutes, yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to skip Jerry. I'll come back to him. Frank Jameson, do you want to speak, please? All right, and just so everyone knows, there's like a whole process to this. So you're going to come up, you're going to sit, please state your name, your address, and then, guess one of us will set a 3-minute timer.
Yeah, yep. Hang on a second. I'm just also switching something up.
Normally, I like to be a little bit more flexible, but even at 3 minutes, we're going to look at ending this meeting after 9 o'clock, and that's late.
Okay.
Also, this will be on the agenda again, so if you think of something or you
Yeah.
want to make additional comments, you're always welcome to come to any of our meetings.
Ready?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll watch the time.
He's setting something.
I'm Frank Jameson.
You-
Said no, okay.
Love it.
What makes this kid the perfect kid for doing touch-up?
There we go.
And then we'll
do
go like
that.
this, and then, okay, go.
I'm Frank Jameson, 19939 Fisher Avenue, Poolesville, Maryland. Thank you for this meeting tonight, and it was nice setup that you've had. When I look at this, it's more of a want, looking for a need. You want to do this, I don't know if it's needed. I don't know of any use that I have ever thought about that would not be allowed under the current zoning and under the current use chart. So I don't know why we need a cultural arts district, since we already had the mechanism in place where you could have a cultural art anywhere in the town, regardless of its location in the commercial zone. So I don't know why you need this. I think that unfortunately, what you may be creating is a division within your town with your own people. That there's a lot of confusion, a lot of questions, and what I just said is appropriate. If somebody comes and wants to have a certain use in the town that is in the use chart, they can be either down in the middle of the town, they can be down where the Tractor Supply is, if the space is available for them. So I don't know if we need this or not. I said something earlier today to a person with whom I was speaking, that I've been in real estate for 48 years here in Poolesville. My parents were in real estate prior to that. In my career, I've had one person come to me looking for something that they could put an artful use in. And I sold them a property that I own that's right next door to my office called Locals. And they put a use in a restaurant, and everything they did was permitted. Now, I have asked for my section of the CAD to be taken out of consideration. And the reason being is that there are 7 properties there. There are 2 that are owned by the Historic Medley, 2 that are owned by the International Order of Odd Fellows, a private resident, a Locals, and myself. Locals is at its highest and best use. The residential owner, in testimony on the 20th of April, said that they did not want to be in this, and I don't want to be in it either. I have 25 seconds left, so I'm done.
Thank you so much for your time, Jameson.
Thanks, Frank.
Always a pleasure to see you.
And that just, Frank, you just reminded me, I did provide to the Planning Commission all of the written testimony that we received last time, as well as a summary of each person's testimony from April 20th and April 6th. So just so you know, I tried to provide as much information to them as possible from you as well.
Thank you, Frank.
Jerry?
Come on, everybody, go ahead.
That's not how this works. You're first on the list.
I'm patient.
I believe it might be Paul Mogren or Paul, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure on this. Yes, maybe? Yes.
There he is.
There we go. I got the Paul right. Forgive me.
Last name is Merson, M-O-E-R-S-E-N.
That's the one.
Poolesville Tire and Auto, 19920 Fisher Avenue. The first question I have is, what happens if something happens to one of the existing buildings that's in the CAD? What's the deal with rebuilding it?
If it's permitted now, it'd be permitted after something happened.
Pardon?
If it's a permitted use now, like you are, it would, if something happened to your building, it would still be a permitted use.
So you wouldn't have to get a special
No.
exception to go ahead and,
So I just want to clarify here, just give 2 seconds so that he has the time. Just to clarify a couple of things to that point. So if it's a special exception now, it would be a special exception then. Your business,
But if something happens to his building, he
hang on.
can rebuild it.
yeah, yes,
Yeah.
let me just go through
Yeah.
for what it is. Is a special exception, then it would be a special exception now. However, you have that use unless you were to not use that use. So you have the special exception, runs with the land. It is not per the owner. One of the things that can happen is if you were to stop using the use for 6 months, that could be a trigger for a new special exception. This is one thing that we talked about previously. It might be something that gets tweaked, is to make sure that in the event of something unforeseen, right, a fire or something like that, that you still maintain that use might be something that we look at as a provision. And that doesn't just apply to the CID, because one of the things that I had a conversation with the town attorney about is clarifying these type of scenarios where there is, because somebody else brought up in a completely different scenario, not connected to the CAD, is that insurance can take sometimes like a year to process those type of things. So looking at those situations where something happens might be something that we have to look at in the code generally, not just with the CAD, because of that. If people are still intending to use it the same way they were, they shouldn't be penalized for that. And so that was one thing that was discussed as well, and seeing if,
I'm confused. So if the building burnt down and I paid to put a new building up, what would I have to do?
as long as it's the same use, you're not changing the use, then you could continue with it. Because in that situation, you're not changing the use. The key thing is the use. So if you stopped using the use, that's why we want to make it clear in the law that if it's, something like that. Yeah.
And we'll make sure we address that specifically
Yeah.
and make it fortified, that our intent would not be to force a special exception to reopen your business after a catastrophe.
And I just
Yeah.
feel like we're a roll of the dice in that one block
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That we're getting screwed
Yeah.
if it goes through.
Yeah,
You know what
okay.
I mean, one block, if we'd been one block down, we'd have been fine. And, I'm not for it, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah,
Thanks for your time.
thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. Next, I have Charles Cohos. Thank you so much.
Charles Cohos, Wooten Avenue, several addresses there, and outside the town as well. I think one of the reasons Paul and some of the other commercial business owners are a little concerned about the special exception is, I sold that property that Paul operates his business out of 4 years ago, and it had been operated as an automotive use since the 1920s by my family for generations.
Mm-hmm.
But there was an interruption in that use, and it extended more than 6 months. So for Paul to continue that use, he had to get a special exception. It could have been denied. It was touch and go. We didn't know. There was opposition. Today, to get that special exception, we would have had done a lot more. We'd have to come with site plans, all kinds of things, right? The restrictions would have been much higher, I think. It would have been very expensive. And I don't know that he would have undertaken that. He might just decide, I'll find someplace else to operate my automotive business. I don't need this. So special exception really does put a chilling effect on development. So if you've got a residential developer, the plan says we want to increase density, we want to make it walkable, but there's no allowance for that outside of a special exception. And it would cost many hundreds of thousands of dollars to create a site plan just to come before the commission and request a special exception for a residential development, even one that is exactly the type you might be imagining in your minds. That's number one. So that's a real chilling effect. And in my experience as a real estate developer, a real estate attorney, I represent developers. I've done this my whole life, my whole adult life. And I can tell you that if there's someplace else to go, they will go there. They're not going to go for the special exception. It's too expensive, it's too risky. The second thing is, if you think you're going to get pushback on things like townhouse developments in this downtown center, in the CAD, imagine, I don't imagine it's going to be any more acceptable for somebody to come with a multifamily project just because it has maybe some retail or something underneath of it. There's going to be every bit as much objection to multifamily as there's going to be single-family, townhome, that kind of thing. My time's up.
Thank you so much for your time. Ginny?
Jenny Staver, 19221 Wooten Avenue. I had a whole presentation to read to you, but I've scrapped that and I'll just send it to you instead. What I want to talk about is the fact that most of the people that are here tonight came to the commissioners' meeting 2 weeks ago. And by and large, they were all opposed to the CAD. You all talk about the CAD like it's a done deal, okay? I'm getting the real impression that it's been your baby for the past couple of years and you're very invested in it as 3 individuals. This plan is not wanted. It's not good for the people of Poolesville. To have a destination city does not put shops in the area that the people of Poolesville are going to be able to use, like a Highs or a mom and pop shop or a barber shop or a beauty shop or, something like that. Those are the kind of shops you want in a small town. This is not a large town, okay? I'm a single operator in my barber shop and I could still handle all the customers that want to come to me. I am not in Bethesda. I do not need 4 people working with me in my barber shop. This is a small town. We need businesses here that are going to serve the people who live in this town, okay? Not destination businesses. I went to Rockland the other day with Cliff, and I was appalled at the amount of people that came up from down county somewhere and brought their little children with them and some wine and cheese and grapes, and they drank all afternoon. And all I could envision was they're getting back in their damn cars and driving back to Bethesda. Okay? That's a destination. That's what you're asking us to have in this town. Okay? There's a wine and cheese up on 28 that does the same thing. We are turning into beer gardens and wine tasting and so on and so forth, and people are coming to these things and drinking all day and then driving home. That's a destination business. And on top of that, you want to put in a cannabis dispensary. This is a small town. I don't care what you think. There are children who are teenagers who are going to be saying to some 18-year-old, I will give you $20 if you will go in there and get me this product. And they're going to do it. They wouldn't do it down in Germantown because then it takes another 40 minutes for them to come home. And that kid isn't going to know if he's going to get his money's worth. But if it's right here in this town, they'll do it. And you pass this bill with the cannabis dispensary in it, I guarantee you none of the commissioners will ever get elected again. Because this town is not going to stand for that when they understand that a pot shop is opening up down next to Lululemon or whatever it's called. Thank you, my time's up.
Thank you, Jenny. I think we should address the cannabis
Yes.
thing, because that was required by the state of Maryland.
Yes, correct. So this
So-
was a
so
change.
Let's
Yeah.
clear up some misconception on the cannabis, please.
Yeah, so the state of Maryland requires us to allow cannabis dispensaries within the zoning, but they also allow us to create certain specific requirements around it. So that's actually separate. There's a separate ordinance, and I can send it to you about that, where it's the distances from schools, there's a distance from churches, there's a distances from that. So there's practical limitations on actually having a dispensary. It's just highlighted in there to reflect the change in the use chart, to make it clear the use. And just as a point of reference, the cannabis dispensary is not a permitted use in the CAD. It's permitted commercial generally because of the state requirement. So, but I can send you more information about that and explain that a little bit further. Yeah, no, I understand, but it was something to clarify.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad we got that clarified, yeah. All right, Gary Hartz. Welcome, Gary.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Gary Hartz, 19101 Fisher Avenue. Congratulations. The Mavericks have a good hockey team, too. But North Dakota is a little bit better. At least this year. I'm not going to go down the path I did before, because you've all read what I said before, and I hope you understood my displeasure with the ordinance. I have no displeasure with the cultural arts district. Did you change the codes or anything when you passed the historic district?
We have not passed a historic district.
Well, there's signs around town saying it's a historic district.
That's related to the National Park Service. They designated it as a historic district in the 70s, but it has no zoning or other implications.
Okay.
This is just a
Well,
designation.
get somebody to put up signs that says cultural arts district and leave the code alone. You have, as has already been pointed out, you created significant dissatisfaction and questioning of our governmental entities by what was proffered before the commissioners. I mean, it doesn't look like it was really thought through in the manner that people did for over 15 years when I served where you're sitting. Actually, I think I sat over here in a different building, and I sat in a different place when I was commissioner. But it just didn't look like you thought of the consequences of property rights associated with all the changes in the commercial zone. And I really do plead, please, don't change the code. Go for an arts district. My wife, that's her whole career is music. She's got opera singers that came out of the Butler School. I mean, I've got grandkids that are proficient all kinds of music and the arts. I'm not against the arts. I'm against infringing upon property rights. And now to hear that the state of Maryland is going to condone and advocates for harming of public health, as is stated by more and more articles all the time. People never thought nicotine was a problem until they realized it caused cancer. People never realized what damage alcohol can do until it started affecting people later. I mean, why would we want to do it? The state of Maryland has made it mandatory. I mean, that's a new one. I'm taking my time for a new surprise that I just got sitting here. Don't change the code. What are they going to do to you? What are they going to do to the town? Find out what the consequences are before we pass things that we really shouldn't be dealing with when it relates to public health. I got 48 years of dealing with public health issues all over the country. We don't want to make a mistake that will down the road harm our children or our grandchildren. Thank you for what you do. I've sat there, I've taken the heat, I know what it's like, and we need to compromise and we need to do our homework. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Zachary Campbell. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Zachary Campbell, 100 Diagonal Road. So I submitted something to the commission a month ago, so I won't reiterate kind of all of that. But what's clear to me from hearing the comments last month and today is the number one thing is people don't want their property rights taken away. They don't want a down zoning. And we've been here for 90 minutes so far, and I haven't yet actually heard anybody say, we're planning on changing that in this legislation. So I think that's got to be a big topic. Like, have you guys thought about it in the past month? And is it an expectation that that's going to go away? I agree with most people here that the goals of the CAD can be accomplished without the need for taking away uses, maybe add uses, or give some small guidances here and there. I don't think the downtown needs more handcuffs to be successful. Kind of let the market process take place. If the town needs a barbershop, it'll build a barbershop. If the town wants an art gallery, it'll build one. And, as some of you may know, I have interest in the residential development in this area, and it's kind of my belief that nobody's going to invest the venture capital into the district to just build a standalone, coffee shop or something. It has to be supported by kind of something that makes money, like the residential. I heard the 2024 comp plan residential here. We asked the question to you of why is it not a super priority? The response of, the water thing. Changing the zoning here kind of feels like a permanent solution to what is kind of more of a temporary problem with the water. I mean, there is kind of a cap, a ceiling to Poolesville. There's not going to be 5,000 new homes over the next decade. It's probably some little amount, and it probably should be concentrated where for the past 35 or so years, everybody thinks it should be concentrated, which is in this walkable area. Our development that we plan to put forth in front of you, I mean, we're going to have the aesthetics. We're going to build the wide sidewalks. We'd love to do an art installation. We'd love to improve the water as storm infrastructure. I mean, there's a lot we want to do to kind of advance the goals that are stated in the CAD. But we'll definitely be the last people to come and say they'll do all that, because we've spent already over $500,000. And as you stated, we're not even close to being in front of you guys yet. They wouldn't let us, without spending another couple $100,000. So that's my point.
Quick question. You said 1800 Diagonal Road. That's not.
Alexandria, Virginia. That's our office.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you for clarifying the city and state.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. And just to, I do want to say, yeah, you're not going to hear us say that we're changing anything tonight. We're not making any decisions. This isn't a formal meeting. This is an opportunity for us to exchange information. The next meeting was where we would start those types of discussions.
Thank you again. Leo Bassett. Welcome, Leo.
I'm on 119933 Wooten, next to Charlie. So a couple quick things. Is the new zone, one of the things I'm kind of confused, and I think, Steve, and you mentioned it, and everyone, everything from the past comprehensive plans are high density, high density, high density. In fact, it even says in the 2015 overlay to create and maintain an economically and culturally viable downtown district, but it says to allow higher residential densities in the town center through a broader range of housing options, including single-family homes, duplicates and townhouses. The redevelopment and densification of the town center over time can meet the demand of the new and more diverse housing in the town. But over and over and over, every single thing that is on this comprehensive plan is high density, high density, high density. So if someone built townhouses here and put retail underneath them, is that okay?
It's permitted.
Yeah. I mean, is that okay? I mean, you guys you don't want townhouses, but you want retail, mixed use. So could you build an apartment complex with retail underneath it? I mean, you want high density. No one here can argue you want high density downtown.
We already have something in the downtown area that looks kind of like that, and that's Kaleva.
That looks like okay.
That's
laughable.
Well.
So anyway, let's move on, because we don't even have to worry about that. That's a joke. So my question, I mean, so another thing is, you guys stuck to this CAD thing with arts, but let's be honest, it would be better to make a biking district. These bikers have $10,000 carbon fiber bikes. In the art district, these are starving artists. The Riverworks, which isn't even open, is 100%, was that a freebie to them? Did they pay for that? I don't know how much it cost from that property and that building, but it was a lot of donations and stuff. So how would anyone arts-related get the money to do a brick and mortar whatever without, someone developing it? I mean, do you guys have any clue on how this evolves? I mean, it's great that you want to go here, but we need a roadway. Is it private investment? What's going to bring us to this point? Is it individuals that just have a ton of money to burn?
Do you want to get into this?
I don't think 30 seconds will be enough.
Yeah, I know, that's the point.
Yeah,
You don't have
yeah.
time. The point is, I think you'd be better off doing like, and I thought the only thing that would make money is the cannabis dispensary, but that's. Can we just do an exchange, or maybe at the end of the year, all the cannabis growers can bring them in, I mean, we could get people. But, you know, there's a lot of cultural arts districts around in Baltimore, you know, Old Town Alexandria, you know, the Torpedo Factory. We almost seen a building that's like a shell that we can convert, but we just don't have that in town. So to transfer open land in this, it's gonna be a hard push.
Yeah.
And I just, no one has a pathway there. I haven't heard of it. So, anyway.
Thank you, Leo. Next month.
All right, Karen Bassett. It says maybe. Do you still want to speak? Yeah.
Yeah.
Come speak. You got 3 minutes.
I hate talking in front of people.
Very, very casual.
Okay. Karen Bassett, Wooten Avenue, Club Hollow Road. So, everything I've heard, I don't really know why this is necessary. Your goals that the community center, the high school, are happening. This town is already super walkable. I mean, I lived in New York City. It's really walkable here. Every single neighborhood is connected by trails. The sidewalks are huge. It's great. You know, it just seems like the CAD is actually just like a malleable tool, so you guys could use it when and how you want. There's no reason for it. And why not a garden center? Honestly, you could scale it for the size, and it's agricultural, which is, if you want to pay homage to Poolesville, we're an agricultural town. So would cannabis, but it just doesn't make any sense. It does not make any sense. And I just wonder, in 1996, were you planning on downzoning, or was that just 2024? There's no reason for it. It achieves nothing. And Riverworks, I mean, they've already said they've had like hundreds of successful classes, exhibits, what have you. So they don't need rezoning. They don't need a cultural arts district. None of the other businesses have seen a big uptick in their business from people coming to Riverworks. There's just no reason for it. And I would say, you know, if you want a cultural district, put up some signs, but there's no reason to downzone people at all. And the existing properties and none of those people are going to tear down or remodel what they have to fit in whatever aesthetic you're envisioning. They're just not going to. Calling Morningstar a craft is kind of laughable. Nobody's coming up to town on weekends to check out Morningstar's crafting. They're a machine shop. They're great. We need them, but that's the reality of it. So I just feel like you're great. We're sorry, but they're not a craft metal shop. And it just, I mean, it seems like a lot of flowery, vague language that honestly sounds like BS and doesn't pass the smell test. It just doesn't. So, thank you.
For your feedback. All right, Bill Jamison. Get all the Jamisons today.
Not getting them all.
Nope.
That's for sure.
The two most important.
Regardless, my name is Bill Jamison. I live at 912 Greenfield Road, Dickerson, Maryland. But I have a 1/6 ownership interest in 19939 Fisher Avenue, where the real estate brokerage is, and other ownership interests in the town, as you may or may not know. Regardless, I looked at the use chart that was put out, and I went over it and did a considerable amount of thinking about it and talking to my brothers and sisters about it. You do realize that there are 28 parcels in the CAD, and those parcels generate in tax dollars. These individuals in this room generate and pay annually in excess of $225,000. That is a lot of money. So I'm just not, just to the town of Poolesville, but $225,000 is a lot of money. You got people in here who are invested and who are paying real serious amounts of tax, and they are sincerely considered offended by what they think is, and I think too, a potential for a diminution of the highest and best use and the value of their real property. Hell, I'm down to one. Now, let's do it this way. What really concerns me is that on the use chart, PCOM, it says here, hospice care facilities is permitted under PCOM, but a special exception in the CAD. Hospitals is silent in the CAD. Hospitals, veterinary is silent in the CAD. Then you turn over to page 13, and do you know what is permitted, though, in the CAD? Tobacco shops. Heck yeah, we need a tobacco shop and a vape shop. They are permitted. Isn't that special? So you're telling the people, the parents of people who have kids that are in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, that you can't have any hospital, you can't have a veterinary, and you can't have hospice, but you can sell tobacco products. So behind that real estate office, I and my brothers and sisters can build a facility to have a tobacco shop and a vape shop and a patio out back so we can have some hookah pipes. And we can have people twisting up tobacco, and I know people in Frederick County that still grow it. So that's permitted uses. You ain't sending the right message to a lot of people with kids, guys. You do wonderful things, and people that take your time to do this are to be applauded, but not for that. Thank you.
Is that for us? Is that applause for us?
I think that's for him.
Oh.
I actually don't think you could put a tobacco shop in your backyard.
I don't know
I'd
specifically
have to
about
measure
how
that
we would
just
do that as an accessory use, but.
Yeah. All right. Tom Kettler, thank you for joining us, sir.
Go after Jameson? That's hard to sell there.
I believe in you.
Tom Kettler, 17917 Elgin Road. Just a couple quick things. I mean, as you all know, I've been in the real estate business for a long time, recently retired. I am a very big property rights kind of guy, so I think the general sense, and obviously I've talked, and I'm also involved in the chamber, as you know, talking to the businesses in and around the area that is affected. The primary thing is people, are concerned that the rights may be changed. Certainly the down zoning, the aspect of the down zoning, which is an aspect of this, if they want to change the use. We understand if the use is the same, but if they want to change the use, then that becomes a problem, and it becomes a special exception, and that's a problem. And certainly from a business perspective, that's something that we're concerned about. I do have some specific questions. A few people were asking me about, I know the ordinance, when I went through it, talked about a 10-foot sidewalk requirement if you're going to pursue this, and people were concerned about what that really, and it also talked about streetscape, and it talked about trees, so people were worried that they would be giving up their property for this. And I think if you have a vision of what that should be, you probably ought to maybe do a sketch or something to show that, because it's pretty unclear to me, and this is a business I've been in for a long time, as to what that 10-foot strip was going to be looking. I don't know if it's 10-foot wide sidewalk or it's part of the right-of-way, but that just needs some clarification. And the other thing, to the point, and to piggyback on what some other people said tonight, I think if you want to encourage something, then you should incentivize it, and whether that's in tax breaks or different things to bring people in. I think the arts, as most people know, it's a tough business to be in. It's not a terribly profitable business to start with for the most part. But if you want somebody to come in and open something up to do that, then you probably need to figure out a way to make it attractive for them to come in. Otherwise, it's just not going to happen. So that's my comment on that, and I think that's all. I appreciate your time tonight, and thanks for all the work on this.
Thank you, Tom.
Tom, I do want to add that we have multiple renderings that was part of our meetings for what that actually looks like. If you want to reach out to the town, I think it.
Yeah, we can share
You
some
do
of
have
that.
sketches, yeah.
Yeah,
because
we-
it
Very
talked, because it
broad.
talked,
It
I
was-
mean, you talk about, well, I guess when I looked at the ordinance, it talked about the guidelines, but everything I saw,
Yeah.
there were no specific
Yeah,
criteria
we-
for that, but
we-
I was presuming you all did something, yeah.
And if you look at if you go to the website and search Cultural Arts District, on that Cultural Arts page that has the FAQ,
It'll
I
have-
also uploaded the design guidelines and some stuff. But the renderings, that is something that John had put together. We'll look at adding that as well.
Yeah, I mean, this was feedback I got from talking to
Yeah,
individual
yeah.
people who were in the
It was
district,
very
and they
good
were like,
feedback.
No,
We can
yeah.
definitely add those
yeah,
renderings.
because people just don't know
But
what
we
it
can,
means.
we can put that together if we need to.
Right,
That's
right.
fine.
Okay, thanks
Thank
for
you
your
so
time,
much.
appreciate it.
All right. I am not sure on the first name. Is it Sarah Fitzgerald? It looked like an N at the end. I wasn't sure. I was like, how do is Sarah N? Sarah? Welcome. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us.
Hi, Sarah Fitzgerald. I live at 19964 Fisher Avenue, and I am one of the people who are actually living in the CAD. We own and live in the CAD. I just want to say I appreciate what you've done in this meeting and like the format. I'm an educator, and I know that if my students are confused, that I need to do something differently. So I appreciate it. I guess because I'm speaking from the homeowner perspective and living in the CAD, I want to share some of my fears tonight because I think you have so many people here tonight. You have so many people here in other meetings because there's fear or perhaps at best concern. Some of that is communication, and I'm so happy that you addressed it because I know it's not feasible to speak to people face to face. Like, I get that. I understand that. It's also not necessarily feasible for me personally to listen to every single meeting just in case it impacts my home and my future. So I think there has to be a middle ground. I'm fearful also that zoning will negatively impact my family. This has kind of been the thing that I keep saying, and I will keep sharing until I hear otherwise. So can you assure me that my family and my home aren't going to be negatively impacted? Because that's the thing that keeps driving me here. It's not being at bedtime with my kids.
Can we pause it for 1 second?
Yeah.
Can you clarify what that looks like?
Well, for me, I think a lot of it started with basic confusion because we didn't know and we didn't have any idea. For me, it's what if we do decide to eventually open up a business in our home once our kid's older? What is that going to look like? What if we go to sell our home? What is that going to look like? Is the potential of how much we make on our home when we sell it, is that going to change? I think there are a lot of what ifs here for homeowners that haven't necessarily been addressed, especially for those of us living in the CAD. If you want support for the CAD, you have to address some of the fears that people are coming. People aren't showing up. They're not taking their free time just because they really enjoy being here. I mean, I don't mean that in a negative way.
No, I
You all
know.
seem like very lovely people, and I love the idea of the CAD. But I'm not here to cheer and to be happy. I'm here because I'm worried and concerned. I got home 15 minutes before this meeting after a very long day as an educator. I'm tired and I'd like to go home, but I'm speaking because I'm worried. And that should speak volumes to everyone here and everyone sitting up here. And I don't think I'm alone in that worry. I mean, there are fears. I'm fearful that speaking up is going to create shallow change and that we're all wasting our time for nothing too. And I think I heard that in people's testimony. Maybe they didn't say those words, but that was the undercurrent, at least on some of those testimonies.
Sarah, we hear you. And absolutely, I think that we are committed to answering your questions and looking at that residential piece in particular, along with other parts. Again, this is an iterative process, and it has never been our intention to take away property owner rights. It has never been our intention to cause you harm or negative impact. And we are exploring options that would give you peace of mind that if, say, you were to open a business and it were to fail, it wouldn't lock you into being a commercial property, that you could have because you were originally a residential, looking at what that reversion looks like. And so we hear you. I want I want to make sure you know we hear you, and this is not a done deal. I know that some people feel like it is, but this has been 30 years in the process, and so I don't know what the final version's going to look like, but I know we've spent the last 2 years doing our best, and we will continue to do our best for the community. And every time you all show up, and every time you send emails, and every time you participate, you get a better product.
I appreciate that. I just hope that our fears can be assuaged as a community and that we're heard, because there are a lot of us here who are worried, and that's why we're coming out.
Yeah, and thank you so much for coming out. All right, Amanda Scherf. Hey, Amanda. Thank you for coming out.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Amanda Schaff. I live at 17117 Chiswell Road. So first, you had asked a question, how to get information out. And I can't speak for everybody, so I'll just share. For me, I sign up for the email alerts, and I love them because they're high level, and you can click in for more information, and they're not too many of them, and I don't have to go to read each of the planning commissions, because bless all the volunteers and the elected officials who come and you do this, and you do this so that we can live in this amazing town and have all the amazing things, and we love that. I don't know whether a community arts district is needed. There are many questions about what does bring people, who do we want, how do we get them? It's a bigger question than I can answer. But I do have some questions about like the walkways specifically, because our downtown is really amazing. It's cute, it's precious, it's got old historic homes that don't have space. I mean, there's part of it that barely has space for a stroller. And yeah, that's kind of irritating when you're trying to walk on the road, but it's also part of our charm. And I don't want to see those lovely houses that are really part of Poolesville impacted because we have this community arts district to try to bring in, more arts or more business or things that our town says that we want, but we don't actually want people to do something about. But I don't want to see the downtown impacted in a negative way. Can you speak at all to the plans for these 8-foot wide sidewalks in a space that currently allots for 2.5 feet?
Stephen, do you want to take that one?
I can. There's certainly no desire or call for changing historic structures where the sidewalk is narrow already in front of them. This is really about new construction and new spaces and places where buildings are not all the way up to the front of the sidewalk already.
So then would, say, a historic house that has 3 extra feet of pretty lawn, have that lawn taken over to provide a walking area for this community arts district?
No, and I will say that also that 10 feet that is discussed is not necessarily pavement. It is a frontage area. And so there are green spaces when you'll see the renderings. I think that would be very helpful to see the renderings. We're not talking about 10 feet of pavement. We're talking about green space. We're talking about gaps. We're talking about the opportunity to put, a couple of chairs and a table out front if we were to get a little ice cream shop or something like that. Like this creates space for use also in front of the places, but it would not impact. So there are really, like you said, lovely little places that have, the little grass and their fence around it. That would not impact them at all.
So what I'm hearing you say is something like if a little ice cream shop wanted to move in and...
Not move in, build. This is a different...
Okay.
This is a completely
That's a good
different
language
Yes.
distinction.
If an ice cream shop wanted to build in a vacant space, they would need to meet that frontage.
Okay. But existing residential spaces would not need to give up their space to
No.
provide for potential other.
It does not impact the existing frontage.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
I am correct on that, right?
Yeah, so what we talked about is if there were opportunities to add sidewalks, and there's been discussion about that, potentially getting easements or things like that to create sidewalks, but it's not an enforcement. We're not forcing anyone to do it. It's if there is open space and
Be
things
an
like that.
enforcement.
Yeah, like I'm saying, for example, we've had previous discussions about adding a sidewalk on West Willard. This is a good example. Yeah.
For 3 minutes?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
let me answer the question as well.
That's not what the forum is for.
Jenny, please.
I'm sick of it. I'd like people to get through so I go home.
Yeah.
I understand.
So like, for example, on West Willard, the idea is if there's space to add a sidewalk, trying to work with the property owners to get easements to add a sidewalk. That's a place that doesn't have sidewalk. Now, obviously, there are spaces like in front of the old Methodist church where there isn't enough space for all of what we're talking about. It wouldn't be changing that. It would be trying to create a way to have a sidewalk there, looking at things like that. So it's not taking anything from anyone. It's a process. Whereas if someone were to build something completely new, then there are requirements to add sidewalk, as there already is generally. So like next door, having to add a connection in front of the houses that then, years back, that then adds to the John Poole house, right? That's what we already do with developments and things like that. So it's separating the two things.
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure on this name, so 14 Selby Court?
Hello.
Hello, thank you for joining us.
My name is Samar. I live on 14 Selby Court. So I had two questions. So this is the first time I'm attending the town hall, so learning so many things. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Good experience.
Welcome. Come
Yeah,
again.
yeah. And I think the first thing, like we moved 9 years ago to this beautiful town, and certainly we are seeing development happening on multiple fronts here, there, down the road, which is concerning for the residents, right? We like the small town feel. We are proud to brag about it with with our friends in Clarksburg and like that. But okay, if it's under the plan, that's okay. But again, we saw this 52 townhomes. That was a little concerning. That's why we decided to come and just see. And we are learning that it's been in the works for the last 30 years, which is okay. We didn't knew about that, and it's still not a done deal. So we'll kind of continue to participate and see how it develops. But I think my first question is, if CAD is done, development is done, what next can the residents expect? Is there anything in the pipeline, like in the next 5 years, 10 years, that another development starts happening down the road here, there? If there's something, we would like to know, right? So that we don't want this to become another Clarksburg or like that. That's a kind of concern. I thought, if the commissioners are here, I can just put up the question. And second thing, maybe due to my lack of knowledge, I heard that 5 water licenses are being worked upon. So I'm not sure what is that for. Is it to increase the water capacity for the town? If that is the case, if we get more water, is it that the town will allow more development for residential or commercial, or is the cap of about 6,000 still in place, even with the new water capacity? That's my second question. Right.
So let me address the second part first, okay? So the permits are to renew the current permits on our wells, okay? So our system, just briefly, is 13 wells, and so they are organized in a certain way that creates 5 permits, okay? All we're asking is for them to be renewed, as is. There's specific questions that we're asking about how we get the water, which is referred to as water balance, that we are working with the state on. None of that would change the capacity. So our capacity is for 650,000 gallons a day of water, which supports a maximum population of 6,500 based on 100 gallons per day per person, okay? So none of that work necessarily increases the capacity. We are working on potentially getting another well, a well development thing. But that also isn't necessarily for capacity. That is to create more redundancy in the system. That is to help us manage in the case of drought and things like that. Right now, the question of capacity, we're first addressing the issues that we have now. We're at about 80% of our permitted capacity. So we have to go through extra steps to make sure that we are making sure that we are keeping the redundancy of the system in case of issues like drought and things like that. So that's sort of where we are. There isn't an attempt at the moment to change anything about that permit limit. It's about redundancy and everything like that. And so that's sort of the way to phrase that. And then the other part, to mention in terms of other developments, there is a development that has approved preliminary plan on West Willard. That also has not been moved forward since the preliminary plan process because there isn't allocation. So it's sort of in this same, it can't be approved without the allocation. So that's what there is in terms of proposed developments is what is called the Bricken property, which is on West Willard, and the 52 townhomes. And that's, in terms of the developments that are in the future, that's what we are aware of as proposals. And again, neither of them can be approved or moved forward without the water issues first.
Okay, all right, thank you, thanks.
No, that's a really good question. And I just 2 seconds want to speak to what's next. And that really depends on the town of Poolesville, right? So like in 96, what was next was a need for public space for meetings and offices. And that's why we're sitting in this beautiful building. What's next in 2005 was protect our schools. And that's why we have the magnet program at PHS. And the other questions of what next have resulted in our upcoming health facility, right?
Yep. Yeah,
Our
the
health and
community
wellness.
center, which will have
Yeah,
clinic space
the
in it and
community
things like
center.
that.
That's what's next, and possibly a pool bubble, and like those are really great questions. And if there is something that we need, or you see an opportunity, please reach out to the town, because what's next is so important. And so I don't know what's next, but you can tell me, and I will work very, very hard to get it if there's a need for Poolesville and it benefits the majority of the population. All right.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Next one is Manu. Thank you so much for coming, Manu.
Hi.
Thank you for the hearing. My name is Manu Wig. I live in 19543 Wooten Avenue. This is my first town meeting I've attended. I've lived here for about 4 years. Frankly, I thought the sign-up sheet was just an attendance sheet.
Now you know.
I didn't really have a question to ask. But while listening to all the discussions which have been going on and the answers, something came to my mind as I heard you guys mention that this is not a done deal. It's not a done deal as in the CAD and the rezoning is not a done deal, or is it just the new high-density development is not a done deal?
All of it.
Yes.
Because if
Yes.
the-
Neither are a done deal.
So if the CAD and the rezoning is not a done deal, who is spending all the money doing the studies for coming up with a plan, potential plan to put in high-density
That's the
development?
developer. So those are different issues.
That's Zach.
Yeah. Zach right there is spending the money. The developer is fronting that as
So they're fronting that.
town-
For the townhouse development,
For that-
for the
For the
52.
townhouse development.
Yes.
They are the ones who come up with the plan and they present it to us.
Even though the rezoning and the CAD is not a done deal.
Right, but that is a separate, the two things are separate. This is where they're separate and connected. They happen to both be in the same place, but they're separate processes.
So if the rezoning and the CAD doesn't go forward, if that is rejected or doesn't happen, their residential development will still go forward if they're separate?
That depends on allocation.
Yeah, so that's partly where the water stuff comes in, if there's allocation. And then they have their own process that they have to go through. So there's a preliminary plan that they have to submit. We're working on the details of. They would have to submit that before the planning commission. There would have to be a public discussion of that, that development and whatever feedback there is. But that's kind of separate from this in the sense that they're two separate things, they just happen to be in the same geographic area. One is a process of zoning that is done by the Planning Commission, and that was all done by them and staff to sort of develop it. The townhouse development is private enterprise sort of coming in and presenting a proposal, which they first did as a concept plan, and then working on the specifics of the preliminary plan, which they're working on now. And they have to get county approvals and all this stuff. There's a whole process that they have to go through.
Okay,
So
so
the
that-
things are connected but also separate.
That sort of clears it up for me, because I was getting confused. It's like,
Yeah.
so if the CAD doesn't go through, the rezoning doesn't happen, how is the development going to happen?
Yeah.
And still, somebody is spending a lot of money
Yeah.
doing the studies.
Yeah, and so how that all interacts with each other is also if there are changes to the CAD in any which way, that could have an impact on what they're doing, but there's all kinds of moving parts.
Okay.
So that's why I say kind of think of them separately but connected in that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for
so
all of you.
much. Jerry, you want to bring us home? Oh, Ashley, do you want to speak?
I didn't sign up because I wasn't sure if my husband was going to be able to make it through bedtime without me, but he's only texted me twice.
Jerry, do you want to defer to the lady Swenson?
I do love Jerry.
Ashley, I'm going to put you down as number 17.
That works. That works. My name is Ashley Swenson. I live at 19922 Wooten Avenue. I want to be clear in recognizing that my stake in this is a little bit different than people who have homes or businesses within the CAD, because I'm just right on the outer edge of it. I look out my dining room window at the CAD. I just wanted to reiterate, if I can, the point that was just previously made, that there are things other than the CAD that are affected by it. I hear often from folks in Poolesville a really strong sense of nostalgia and a desire to stop time and live in a bubble. And again, I want to be careful about how I relate to that, because I've only been here for 12 years, and so that makes me a newbie. And I recognize those things. But I do really love this town. And if it was possible to stop time and live in a bubble, I would probably choose to do that. But I think that sometimes we lose sight of the fact that there will be change, regardless of whether or not we've chosen it. And if we don't choose the type of change that we are facing, we may end up with something that we don't like very much. So full transparency, I don't want to live across from 52 townhomes. That's not the view I want out of my dining room window. Also, full transparency, I don't know that I love the idea of there being an ice cream shop directly across the street. I would go broke very quickly with 3 kids in an ice cream shop directly across the street. But I know that there's going to be something other than that empty lot there. And if I have to choose between 52 townhomes and an ice cream shop with an apartment above it, and I think not just about my dining room view, but which of those things has a more positive impact on the town that we live in, then I'm going to choose the ice cream shop with over the townhomes. Every time, 100%. I really hope that all of the feedback that's been given to the Planning Commission can be taken in such a way that it can address the concerns of the people who have residential homes and businesses within the CAD, so that they have confidence in how that will affect them moving forward, because I care about my neighbors. But I just want to express support for the idea that we have to, as a community, come together and find a way to voice the change that we want to have happen, and recognize that standing still is not possible. I think I spoke my piece.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley.
Well said.
All right, Jerry, now it's your turn. Thank you for deferring.
You're welcome. I wish Ashley, Jerry Klobakowski, 17300 Fletchall Road. I wish Ashley hadn't mentioned ice cream, because now I'll probably have to go over to Dollar General and buy a half gallon. But anyways, I digress. As I said before, I think the idea of a cultural arts district is great. However, in the area it's at, I don't see how it can fit into the town. As I mentioned before the commissioners, if people want to put on artistic performances, we have the new high school auditorium. There's one at the middle school, at the elementary school. The place right directly before us one of the reasons for creating it was for cultural arts. And in fact, there have been music concerts and ballet performances out there as well. And so, this, in the area, the area it's in doesn't fit. And oh, by the way, I do view welding as an art. Having seen some stuff in various museums in Europe and here in the States that are made from metal, and they're done quite nice. And, I think a restaurant, you wouldn't have Michelin 4 stars if you weren't artistic in your ability to create a distinct plate of food, and people would, relish that sort of thing. And then also the fact, the ability to take a fabric and create something, whether it's covering an old antique that your mother had, or putting some sort of dressing on walls or windows, I think that's an art too. And so I think we have artists in town. It's just that we don't call them artists. We call it Bassett's, we call it Morningstar, we call it RMD, and so anyways, I think we already have that. It's already in that area, and we don't need to bound it. And if somebody wants to come in and have an art studio, then, also we have vacant shops in a couple of the strip malls that we have. So why aren't those owners doing something about it to encourage that? And I also, one other thing, there was a place up in, I think it was Union Gap or Liberty Town, called the Carriage House. It was a bakery. People would come from Washington, D.C. to have their wedding cakes made. If you have quality, value, and service, people will come to you and pay for it. If you don't, you will fail. And I've seen a lot of businesses come in, they don't understand the community, they don't understand the clientele, and also they didn't really have a good business plan, and they did fail. Thank you, good evening, and hopefully, hey, you're all still awake too. My God, you've done very well. And thank everybody else here for coming out.
Yes, thank you everyone for coming out. We very much appreciate it. We hope to see you in the future. Please continue to engage. You've given us a lot of information to digest and go through and see where we land on this. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Can I just add one thing? I know May meant to finish anything more Morningstar does.
Yeah, no.
I just don't think the context was